You know, every single day, whether you realize it or not, you're in a battle. It's a battle for your mind. Today, we're going to dive into a source that lays out this invisible battlefield, and it shows us the forces that are constantly trying to shape who we are.
So just think about it for a second. Everything you consume, the shows you binge watch, the music on your playlist, the articles you scroll through, it's all input, right? So the big question this source asks is, what's the output? How is all of that stuff actually changing you?
The material we're looking at today really doesn't pull any punches. It opens with a pretty bold claim that most of what we call entertainment isn't just a way to relax. Nope, it's an active influence and, a lot of the time, not in a good way. Let's start with books and articles. The source claims that the publishing world has basically cracked a code for making money just provoke our most primitive, our most basic impulses. The goal isn't really to inspire us or make us think. It's to sell by appealing directly to our baser instincts. Okay, and what about the music we're all listening to? Well, the source calls a lot of popular music an intoxicant. It argues that instead of pushing us towards higher ideals, like, say, sacrifice or compassion, its main job is to give us a quick, almost visceral emotional hit. And then you've got the big one, cinema, which the source calls the miracle of the age. I mean, it has this incredible power to captivate us, right? But the verdict here is pretty harsh. It says most films don't lift us up, they actually inspire people to fall lower. So you can see the pattern taking shape here, right? Across literature, music, and movies, the argument is that art has been kind of taken over by commerce. And the formula seems to be pretty simple. Appeal to our most basic instincts, which, according to this text, just leads to this slow but steady decline in our collective well-being.
Man, that is a pretty bleak picture of how we're being influenced. But right after painting this really dark scene, the source just pivots, like completely. It argues that the real defense against this constant barrage of noise from the outside world isn't external at all. It's found by turning inward.
So what is this powerful counterattack? Well, the source introduces a pretty radical idea, the power of our own thoughts. And it presents them not as just some idle daydreams, but as a seriously potent, active force. Now this is a total reframing of what a thought even is. According to the text, it's not just random mental chatter. It's a tangible form of energy, as real as electricity, that actually radiates from us and has an impact on the world around us. And this slide just perfectly illustrates the whole idea. On the left, you've got our typical mental state, kind of scattered, chaotic, weak. But the source argues that when we learn to focus our thoughts, we can turn all that dissipated energy into a powerful, directional force. It's like focusing a dim light bulb into a laser beam. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds a bit philosophical, maybe a little out there, but the source doesn't just stop at the idea. It actually tries to ground this whole concept in science, pointing to several findings to back up the claim that thought is a physical force. So the source pulls from a bunch of different fields to make its case. It mentions early parapsychology research on telepathy, thoughts being sent between minds. It talks about studies on how thoughts can trigger different chemical reactions in the brain. It even brings up experiments suggesting focused thought can affect physical objects, and research where a doctor's positive empathy was found to be more healing than actual medicine. Okay, so if our thoughts really do have this kind of potential, how do we actually harness it? How do we go from that scattered, chaotic state to a focused one? To explain it, the source uses this really simple but powerful analogy. First, we have to recognize what our default state is. The text says our typical mind is like the scattered rays of the sun. Yeah, they give off a general warmth, but they're diffuse. A lot of that energy is just wasted, with no clear direction, which means it has very little impact. So the solution is to act like a magnifying glass. You consciously choose a single point. It could be a goal, a problem, whatever. And then you deliberately gather up all those scattered mental rays and direct them onto that one single spot. And what happens when you focus sunlight with a magnifying glass? You create fire. The source claims that the exact same principle applies to our minds. That mental focus creates an immense power. A force that's capable of overcoming obstacles and creating real, tangible change. Okay, so that's the principle. But how do we make it practical? How do we actually train our minds to move from that disorganized thinking to this kind of systematic focus in our day-to-day lives? Well, the source gives us a clear 4-step method.
First, systematize. Basically, stop wasting energy on useless, irrelevant thoughts. Second, concentrate. Pick one subject and really think on it deeply. Third, analyze. Use logic and facts to build your case. And finally, apply this focus to all areas of your life, from personal problems to social issues. The ultimate takeaway here is that focused thinking isn't some gift you're born with. It's a skill that can be trained.
And so we end up right back where we began. We've seen all these powerful external forces trying to shape us. But the source leaves us with something that it claims is far more powerful: the force within. It argues that every single one of us possesses this immense power. The only question left is, what are you going to build with it?